Hello, newsies. Welcome to episode 77. We've done 70 of these, Kate.
Yeehaw.
70 of Get the Flick Out of Here. Okay. So, I don't know why, but this movie popped into my head last week, and I was like, let's do this right now. We'll just do it. And I'm very glad it did because I hadn't watched it probably for like 8 or 9 years, but it was one of my favorites when I was a kid. And unlike almost every other instance of this, I feel like the movie holds up. It's not like I'm watching going like, man, I was so dumb when I was 12. Like I don't have any of those thoughts while watching this. Honestly, like watching it back again, and because I am me, again
7
and
times.
again and again. Like I watched it 4 times, once with the director's commentary on the DVD that I own. It's really solid. Like
It's
they do a
great.
really great job of finding all of the possible things that go, well, that this little thing would be a plot hole, but they plug it immediately. They say, well, don't be a plot hole. Now the science is off the wall, can't possibly be done, but the movie kind of recognizes it and says, yeah, this is nuts. Because it is a Joe Dante film, who did Gremlins 2, which we did, and The Burbs, which we reviewed.
Oh, okay.
So
Makes sense
he,
now.
Joe, if you're out there, you are so far undefeated on Get the Flick Out of Here.
Yeah.
We have to actually make up a bowling trophy that says the Keep It In Award, and then we can present it to the people whose films we keep in. But so far, we kept it in Gremlins 2, we kept it in The Burbs, and I guess we should see if he's got a perfect record going in with InnerSpace. But I forgot how charming the movie is.
Oh my gosh, Martin Short is like,
He's just,
how can you not be in love with that guy the whole time?
yeah,
He's the best.
It's great. The thing I will say is that it won an Oscar for best visual effects, and almost all of the shots inside the body are all done practically with a camera.
Yes.
Up close to whatever. Like there's some really cool stuff. The visual effects supervisor is on the director's commentary on this DVD I watched, and so he would explain how they did that, all these different things. And Roger Ebert, when he was reviewing it, thought it looked so real that he said it must be actual footage of inside the human body that they then overlaid a little craft, the little submersible pod. They overlaid that onto actual footage of the human body. And they said nothing has given me greater pleasure than to write a letter to Roger Ebert and say, no, it was all fake. I faked it.
That's amazing. I
So
love that.
That's great.
I feel like it succeeds because overall, and then we can get into it, but like so many times I feel like when we watch movies, especially this came out in 1987, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It like they always try to do way too much, like way too much. And this was, it's a wacky little thing. It definitely still fits our weird criteria,
Right?
But it stays the course the whole time, really. Like there's not just like, and then for some reason, aliens are here, or like, like there's nothing. It doesn't betray itself at any point, and then
no.
There's some actors who I just love in everything they do. Like Bradley Whitford's one of them. Tom Hanks is one of them. Martin Short's like right there for me too. I'd never heard of this movie. I did not know this movie existed. I quite like Dennis Quaid, and I love Martin Short. So, as soon as I saw him show up in this, I was like, oh, sick. Like, this is going to be great. He's so, this was a young Martin Short though, too, which I haven't like seen a lot of in a while.
It's his second major film role after Three Amigos.
Wow. Okay.
Like he'd only done TV stuff, but yeah.
Just charming and really like, pulls something so weird back into like a reality. Cause the way he was reacting the whole time, I feel like a lot of it is how you would react if something insane like this kind of was happening or whatever. Well, like it It's really
when you add the conditioning of he's also a anxiety-riddled hypochondriac. Like, he's the worst possible
candidate
guy to have this thing happen to him, but the best possible if what you're looking for is comedy.
Correct.
And so that's why it works so well. Yeah, the writer of this, Jeffrey Boehm, who sadly passed away some years ago, also wrote Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. He basically rewrote the entire script for Lethal Weapon 1, and then actually wrote the scripts for Lethal Weapon 2, Lethal Weapon 3. He wrote Funny Farm with Chevy Chase, which I think is a really cute little mid-'80s comedy. He had a really cool like breadth of things. Then he started being like creators for like TV shows after this. But Joe Dante in The Thing said that he's probably the smartest writer I've ever worked with. And because I think a lot of that, he didn't actually say it, but because he finds all these possible loopholes and closes them. You know what I mean? There's only like one or two that I'm like, I wish they would have dealt with this, but that's honestly, there's not much, even for me, who's all.
I was gonna say that's you.
Yeah, that's crazy. So the movie starts out with a really cool little effect shot. You don't really know where the camera's moving through, but it turns out it's like the ice in a rocks glass. But it's all done in a really cool little special effectsy type of way. We are at some function for Navy pilots. People are going to get a medal or something. And the keynote speech is interrupted by a guy loudly being shoved out of the kitchen, saying, "Where can a guy take a leak around here?" This is Dennis Quaid. Well, we find out later his name is Tuck Pendleton. And he is drunk. And it does appear from it does appear from everyone's reaction that this is normal for Tuck Pendleton. And he tries to make a speech while very drunk and a toast, and ends up raising his glass too high and falls over and destroys the hors d'oeuvres table, which has a lot of fancy models of planes. He used to be a top notch test pilot for the Navy. And then the 70s through the 80s were a time of rapid advancement in all kinds of things you could drive, fly, or dive under the sea with, especially for the U.S. Navy. But they needed people who could test them. And these people, they knew when they would do it that there was a chance they wouldn't come back because it's a brand new piece of equipment. And this is something that you have to have a certain kind of mental state and personality to be somebody who does this for a living. And I think that they don't really go into it. It's the 80s, so just a guy being drunk at a party is just a thing that happens all the time, and nobody should look into it. He has a serious alcohol problem.
Yeah.
And the movie never really deals with it. I think it's implied that now when they get to a happy ending at the end, that he just won't drink all the time, but he's definitely going to keep drinking because the man is an alcoholic and has not sought any help for it.
This is addiction. So
yeah. Yes. Oh my God, this is the worst. Tim, vaya con Dios. You have to frantically eat cheese due to a broken refrigerator. It is. Oh
my God. I'm so sorry that you're in this situation.
I have to eat cheese frantically. I'm very sorry for you, Tim. So he gets whisked into the kitchen by a bunch of other test pilot type stuff, and they're, you're a disgrace, Pendleton. Why don't you take off that uniform? And then he gets into a fist fight with a bunch of them. He's a smart cookie though, because he picks up a pot and one of the guys punches the pot, probably breaks his hand. But he gets into a big fight with him. And then there's another guy whose name is Pete, who's I was gonna say co-worker, but I don't feel like that's actually the apt description in the Navy. But he's an officer who knows Pendleton. And he's like, you gotta. He's like, where's your uniform, Pete? Where yours should have been a long time ago, hanging in the closet. And so it appears as though his career in this kind of thing is fully done now. No one's going to hire him. This is just the latest in a series of him being terrible at this. And so Meg Ryan is an investigative reporter who is there to report on whatever's going on, but also sees her ex-boyfriend, Tuck Pendleton, just doing Tuck Pendleton stuff, and she feels bad for him, so she takes him home to his disgusting apartment that is just covered with crap everywhere. It's not disgusting; it's just cluttered would be an understatement.
Hoarder-ish. I would say hoarder-ish.
Yeah, but she notices that there's all these pictures of rabbits everywhere. There's a model of a rabbit. It's like, what are you doing? It's some project I'm working on, like with rabbits. Yeah, wabbits. And he tries to convince her to stay the night because he's drunk, and and she says no until he puts on their favorite song, which is "Cupid" by Sam Cooke, which is a great song to have be your favorite, your song as a couple. And they slow dance and kiss, fade to black. Oh, Lydia, Meg Ryan, you let him do it to you again, sweetheart.
Oh.
It's time to make a clean break, I think. And this is the fun thing about Joe Dante, is that I forgot that this was directed by Joe Dante. And we talked about this with Gremlins 2 and with the Burbs. He's got a set, like a troupe of players that are in all of his movies. He always brings people back that were in his movies before. And so this is Dick Miller from Gremlins, Gremlins 2, The Burbs, he's a very small part. And he said, I think Dick agreed to this because he got an all expenses paid weekend to San Francisco. Because it really is a very small part.
It's super small.
But it is he's the cab who's supposed to pick her up. And Dennis Quaid runs out after her, just wearing a sheet wrapped around his midriff. And it's like, this is good for you, sweetheart. You should make a clean break. Will you shut up, cabbie? Get in your cab. But he's trying to be like, no, come on. We're just going to get back together. So please don't do this. Like, I know I was an ass last night. I'm really sorry. I'm going to get better. And she's like, no, I can't. This is different now. This is where I'm going to have to do some research on and wonder what's going on. But anyway, she says, it hurts me too much to be with you. And she gets in the thing, and he says, look, Lydia, I stubbed my toe when I kicked the cab. I think it might be broken. She says, better your toe than your heart. And they drive off, but his sheet is caught in the door. So he's just standing there stark naked in the middle of one of the most photographed streets in the world. A specific street in San Francisco that goes down a very steep hill and sees all the businesses and high rises of San Francisco. And then we get, that's it. So she goes, she leaves him, and then we get a little title card that says 2 months later. So it's 2 months later, 2 months have passed. And now we get into the real meat of the story.
It's true. So a few things with this. My sister's name is Lydia, and her name never gets to be in movies, so it was really nice to see all she gets is Beetlejuice and nothing else. So.
That's
and
cool.
Good for my sister. Good for Lydia.
Yes.
Taking a stand here, but
yes.
This cast it's so fun to see people who I guess after Three Amigos, Martin Short was probably pretty blown up or whatever, but it's very fun to see young Meg Ryan again. And
she had only done that part in Top Gun where she was Goose's wife.
Wow. Okay.
That was it.
So it's
that
fun.
Was it.
This is
both she and Martin Short came in to read for the parts and blew everybody away. And the producers were like, we would like somebody that with name recognition who can, help sell tickets. And then they saw her test reading and were like, no, you can hire her. She's perfect.
She's the one.
So, she's
what
perfect.
I was thinking about, because when we did Joe versus the Volcano,
mm-hmm.
I hadn't seen Meg Ryan in anything but this role that we saw here. I had only seen her, and she's great at it, so I get it. But she's just been rom-com gal, gal. But it's kind of fun to see her in these earlier roles a little bit. But it is funny how many tropes we keep stumbling into. I'm like, how many movies have we done with an investigative reporter? Like, but we also do ones where people would be investigative reporters would be covering a lot of stuff, right? Of like weird dinosaurs and aliens and the things that we do. So it's fair. It's actually fair.
A lot of screenwriters started out as reporters on some local paper, so that's like write what you know. And
there
so
you go.
It winds up being that they know, at least if they weren't, they have friends who were, and they could call them up and say, okay, I got this scene where the investigative reporter is trying to do, how would this come up, kind of a thing, and they can get help with that. Anyway, this is where we meet Jack Putter. He's in his doctor's office. A thing that happens a lot, as the doctor says, your usual visits are the cornerstone of my entire medical practice, which is where I was like, okay, I don't know, I was too young, I don't know what the state of medical insurance in the States was in 1987, but this guy does not make nearly enough money his insurance company would drop him if he was just going all the time. But he's a hypochondriac who believes he's got pounding headaches and asthma and all these things. He's obviously a hypochondriac, but he tells his doctor, who's a very well-meaning, very nice older guy, who's his doctor, and it says he relates a dream. He still has nightmares, in this dream that he talks about is that he is a grocery clerk. Now, it is said later that he is the assistant manager at the Safeway where he works, so perhaps that helps out. But anyway, he's ringing up a bunch of stuff at this register, and everything is way more expensive than it should be. And when he gets done, it's way up over $100,000. And the woman who he's ringing up, who is a horrible woman with bright orange hair, sideburn Becky Lynch. But anyway, I don't know why bright orange hair has to mean she's horrible, not Martin Short. I mean, judge everybody according to themselves, as opposed to just a blanket statement. All women with bright orange hair are horrible. I just don't feel like that's okay.
Haley Williams in the mud too. Just
yes.
Wrong.
So she I don't carry that kind of cash around with me, sweetie. She pulls out a tiny little Derringer pistol. And that's when he wakes up screaming. And of course, they time it out perfectly because Martin Short is brilliant. Also, Joe Dante would say that Martin insisted on doing more and more takes. And the thing of it is he was always right, because we always use the last take.
Wow.
He'd always come in and he'd do something and it was good, and then he'd do it again and it was better, and he would keep doing it up to like 10 takes, and always the last one was the best, because he found something new. There's a really great thing where he's telling the story to his doctor, who's like kind of just doing a little pounding on his back to like see how he reacts when he's breathing in. But every time he does it, it stops him. And he's like, the way he does it, it's so brilliant. And he says, Joe Dante says, none of this stuff. That pick the funniest thing that Martin Short does in the movie. It's not in the script. None of it's in the script. It's all Martin Short. It's all Martin Short doing all this stuff. And he said that Martin Short would do one of his impressions, which was Katharine Hepburn. And he would like, I just want another take, Joe. One more. Give me one more cake. And he would do that. And it's like, I can't say no to Katharine Hepburn. Who can say no to Katharine Hepburn? And I think that's a really cool story.
There's something kind of special with that too, because I feel like, well, one, you're an actor, so I'll throw the question to you of like, do you feel like you've ever instinctually known of like that was the one kind of thing, or in live performances, even like on theater, of just like, yeah, that felt better than yesterday? And then two, with physical stuff, I feel like that's even more of a thing, because it's like you might be giving yourself like that tick or whatever, and for someone that's like a hypochondriac, that's like a whole other level, because it's like You just have to keep discovering stuff, but it's not actually real because you're a hypochondriac, right?
That's right.
It's like, well, I would react like this, but it's not actually a real condition. So that doesn't totally surprise me. But he just is like, almost like with Pee Wee Herman, like there's just like that vulnerability that you find, and you just want to like scoop him up and hug him. So many points in this movie. Such a special actor who I feel like every performance that guy's had, I think part of the reason I'm so drawn to him as an actor is like it all feels like him but so different. Like there's signature him stuff, but like this is not Father of the Bride Martin Short or Three Amigos Martin Short. Like it all feels so different, but that's cool to hear because he definitely found it on each one of those takes.
Yeah, that's I mean, like the takes are basically just rehearsals for a guy like Martin Short. You know, you're rolling, but he's just rehearsing until he does it right, and then that's the one you get to keep. It's the same thing if you're doing a live performance where rehearsals are there for you to test out new ideas and different things and stuff like that, and then you'll find one that actually really works, and you'll keep it and do it over one. So anyway, he is told by his doctor, take a vacation. Come on, just take a vacation. And maybe that'll help you relax, because that's what you need to do. You need to relax. And so he's decided that he will do that. Later, at the very end of the movie, it addresses the thing that I was having a problem with here, because Jeffrey Boehm is very smart and figures out how to address things. I was like, I don't know if the grocery clerk, even if he's an assistant manager, has the kind of savings to I'm because he's going to Mexico. Also, this guy does not strike me as a person who has a passport. You know what I mean? Like he does not. Why would he ever need to leave anywhere? But they
I just define it as people take vacations they can't afford all the time. So
that's true. But he seems like a guy who would be deathly afraid of like having credit card debt.
Yes,
you know what I mean.
Agreed.
Like everything's gonna be perfectly metered out. But they mentioned at the end it was 2 years savings for his to go on his cruise. So yeah, there you go.
So sweet.
So this is when we get to Tuck in this place where he's doing they're doing a miniaturization experiment, which is why he needed to study rabbits, because he's going to be shrunk down and injected into a rabbit. That's his whole thing. And there are all kinds of ways that this is going to result in the death of Tuck Pendleton, but no Lydia. He doesn't have his commission at the Navy anymore. Honestly, I'm the only one crazy enough to do it. They're probably paying him a good amount of money. But also if I go, that's fine. Honestly, I don't
have kids. I'm not leaving anything behind.
Yeah, exactly. So, but they mentioned something of like, can we please go over this, facial neuroscan something experiment, which is part of the thing that they were going to do there's a scientific process later in the film that seems completely, obviously it is completely made up, but also, why would you need to be able to do this if you're inside a rabbit? But apparently they want to test to make sure the thing works, because they want to be able to do it later, and they want to make sure the technology works. So they're going to have him test it out. So that's why he's able to do it later in the film, because he was always supposed to do it when he was in the rabbit. And I love that the movie brings that up. There's the head scientist.
Do we find out? I can't remember. Did they say why, like, there wasn't an army of rabbits that we were trying to get to, right? Like, did they say why we're shrinking, why it's a rabbit specifically? I can't remember, and I don't have it in my notes.
No, I mean, it's the first attempt. This is the first time anyone has done this with a person inside the pod. They've been able to shrink the pod down and bring it back up.
What is the value of having an extremely tiny person? I feel like.
Well, in the original Fantastic Voyage, which this is a takeoff on, they shrunk a submersible down and injected it into somebody because they could not. operate on a part of the brain of this person who had like vital Cold War era secrets.
Gotcha.
They had to save him so they could wake him up and ask him the secrets. But he had a blood clot in his brain from an assassination attempt by the Ruskies, and they could not operate on that part of the brain without killing him from the outside.
So they needed to make a teeny tiny person
from the
to go in
inside.
And get it.
They could have done that to like remove the blood clot, wake him up, get him out of the coma. So maybe it's that. I don't know, but they're just testing it on a rabbit. It was not like we got to make sure there are little tiny men in every rabbit in America.
Well, that's what I couldn't remember. And that's something that you would have a problem with, is what is the point of shrinking someone down to a teeny tiny one? I did not see what this was a take of either. I had not seen that movie. So.
Yeah, the Fantastic Voyage was a classic from
from the 60s, right? Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, the head scientist is a man named Ozzy, who's just such a nerd, and he's just so awkward about everything, but he really makes you feel like he's an actual scientist who's awkward around people and everything. And the reason is because he's not an actor. He is Joe Dante's usual director of photography, his usual cinematographer, who was not doing this thing because they wanted a different look for this than the normal one that John Hora, his name, does for movies. And it was actually Steven Spielberg, who was the top producer on this movie, who, like we were talking about, who we want to get somebody like John Hora to play this part. And Steven Spielberg was like, why not John Hora? Like, he's a smart guy. He can memorize lines. Honestly, it looks perfect. And he's great. And the reason he's so great is because you feel like he's an actual weird, awkward scientist guy. All the extras in these scenes also are all scientists from the Jet Propulsion Lab in outside of out of LA. So they just get all these real scientist people. That's why they all look like real scientist people, because they are real scientist people, which I thought was great.
You do get the impression that, like, I always say this about, there's certain musicians that like don't know how to talk to you, and I'm like, yeah, because they just lock themselves in the room and practice guitar scales for 20 hours a day. Like, they don't do anything else. That kind of is how this guy read, of like, I do science and I don't talk to anybody.
So while they are setting up to shrink down Tuck Pendleton in his submersible pod, and he and inject him into the rabbit, there is an assault on the lab by guys in phone repair costumes. They also have these little aerosol cans that I guess blow sleep gas at people, and very nice of them not to kill anybody. That was nice, except for at the end. But they are there to hostily take the technology. The top person is Dr. Margaret Kanker, very beautiful woman, 45-ish.
I think gave her the last name Kanker.
I know.
That's in my notes.
Well, like they give the other guy the last name of Scrimshaw. Like, everybody's got all the Igo. They all have weird that's part of it. All these bad people have these weird sounding names. But anyway, so they take the chip. There's a chip that's inside the pod, and the chip that is outside the pod. You need both chips to re-enlarge. So the little pod is now shrink down and inside a syringe. And Ozzy and this woman, Dr. Margaret Kanker, apparently know each other professionally. And it feels like she wanted him to come and do work for their evil miniaturization project. And because he's really good at it, and he said no. So that's how they know each other. But it's never brought up again. They recognize each other and talk to each other for a second. And then Ozzy runs over, grabs his syringe, knocks somebody out, and just runs. And he has this amazing chase scene with a guy named Mr. Igo, who has a removable hand that has a gun in the pointer finger. This is Vernon Wells, who was in Road Warrior and Commando. He doesn't speak in this, which is probably the best for Vernon Wells, because he's a very imposing looking dude, but his voice does not match how imposing he is. So
no, not even a little. It's very weird.
Yeah.
Alex,
anyway.
my big thing with this is my maybe favorite thing you do, and you do a lot of things on camera with me as your co-host, is running.
Yeah. Okay.
And we did have a chase scene here.
Oh, there's lots of chase scenes in this movie. Yep.
That is true.
Yeah.
But at some point, I'm gonna need you to mime the.
No. So Ozzy is running. He's running along this culvert, and Igo is driving the car behind him, going to run him over. So this 50-ish laboratory scientist leaps over a chain fence and grabs onto it, dangling 40 feet above his certain death, and then pulls himself back up over the chain link fence and goes over the other side of the culvert through some bushes into a neighborhood where he gets a bike. And then Mr. Igo, I just want to call him Doc. He's not a doctor. He's not a doctor. He jumped out of medical school. Mr. Igo is driving his car behind him. So he's riding his bike, and he's riding his bike, and he's riding his bike, and he's dodging in and out of traffic, and he's riding his bike, and he's riding his bike. And then he goes into a parking lot for a shopping mall. Shopping malls, kids, are where they used to have all of the stores.
It's anyway, like Amazon, but it's in person.
Right. Yes.
And you can get your stuff immediately, but it's more expensive. It's the head back and forth, I realized, with the run.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no.
So he runs into this thing. He's got the I love also that you can hear Dennis Quaid trying to talk to him over the little headset. Ozzy, what's going on here, buddy? I don't know what's going. Am I being punished? Like,
he's so good in this.
He's so great.
He's a Dennis great Quaid, actor.
90% of him on screen is him stuck in a little pod, and they just shoot him like from right there in the thing. It's like there's no room anywhere. He doesn't have any time to like. It's all done with face and modulating his voice. It's a really great performance. The thing I love about it is that normally, especially now, you would just have the guy there by himself, and then you would overlay the other dialogue later. But they had Martin Short was off to the side, talking into a thing, which would then feed into Dennis Quaid's ear. So he would talk to Martin Short for real, like Martin Short was there. And when Martin Short was doing any of his stuff, Dennis Quaid was off screen. And so they would do, and sometimes during like in between takes, they would improvise a scene between Katharine Hepburn and John Wayne, because apparently Dennis Quaid does an amazing John Wayne, and this would just keep the entire. Joe Dante said this was his favorite set he was ever a part of.
Oh, yeah. I love to hear that.
Yeah. CO saying, starting late, but I support the creation of the Joe Dante Keep It In Award. Love you guys. Have a great weekend. You too, CO.
Well, Alex said that it's going to be a bowling trophy, so that $5 might be enough to like actually go to Party City and pick one of those up and just slap it across.
So anyway, Igo follows him into the mall and sees him and uses his little silenced finger to shoot him. And this is where Jack Putter and Martin Short has gone to a travel agent. See, kids, travel agents were before Expedia, where you couldn't actually find anything. There was no internet. You couldn't Google
before the internet.
Cheap cruises near me. You couldn't do that. So anyway, he was in a travel agent, and he comes out of the travel agent, and he's walking toward the elevator, and Ozzy, who has now been shot, stumbles forward. He knows he's dying, and he injects the syringe into the buttocks of Martin Short. And Igo he's dead. Igo comes and finds him and sees there's a guy who's been taking pictures, and he steals that guy's camera. And he also pops a balloon that a clown is using to entertain a child with his syringe. So they use the
little stuff like that. I loved. Yeah, that's just like he's the bad guy, so we're gonna seamlessly have a little kid's balloon get popped here. Like
Martin Short goes back to his studio apartment. No, sorry. He goes to work first, obviously. He goes to work. And the thing from his dream comes true.
Yeah.
But before that, he meets Wendy Shao, who was from The Burbs, who was the trophy wife across the street in The Burbs. She had done almost nothing, but she had done an episode of some TV show that Joe Dante directed, and he loved working with her so much. He had this part written for her. No one else was going to play this part but her. I think that's so great. And she's bagging groceries, and she's really, really bad at it because she fills a grocery bag all the way full, and a dozen eggs go on top. And on top of the dozen eggs is a giant 2-gallon glass jug of Gatorade, crushing all of the eggs. It's a really cool little moment. You know exactly who this person is.
Someone who has ADD.
Yeah,
this is relatable.
she stood up Martin Short for a date last night. Martin Short was not really happy about that. But then the woman from the horrible orange-haired lady is there. All the things happen because the reason why the prices are so high is because Dennis Quaid is using an electromagnetic booster, which apparently makes all electronics nearby go haywire. He's trying to like reestablish connection, but it can't happen. So anyway, Martin
just
Short,
like his little face in this when he's dealing with this woman, like he's so lovable. I can't express it enough.
But he's like when he has a full-on break and he starts screaming for some aspirin. And they give it, he opens the bottle and just dumps all of and chews it, and it's just like foaming out of his mouth, and he's hyperventilating. And Henry Gibson from The Burbs is there. It's like, Jack, you're gone psycho on us. Come on, you gotta calm down, buddy. So later we see him just in the manager's office, in Henry Gibson's office, trying to figure out what's going on. And Dennis Quaid has gone to the optic nerve. He's going to try and establish connection by putting a little thing into the back of the eye so we can see out the eye. But the way to do that is by poking the back of the eye with something that then transmits back to him. And I feel so bad for the bunny. That was supposed to happen to a little rabbit. And I was like, no, but that bunny didn't have anything to do. But
see, this is how I became vegan. This poor little bunny.
I wasn't going to eat the bunny. But the
nice to animals.
He starts screaming about how his eye has been poked with a white hot sewing needle. He says, but he's covering it up, and they open his up, and so that Dennis Quaid can see out. And he's like, "Wait a minute, who's this people? Who are any of these people? Oh, I'll be a son of a bitch. I'm in a strange man in a strange room surrounded by strange people. What's going on here? I'm supposed to be in a bunny. What's going on? Ozzy, are you there?" And so he takes plotting course to inner ear. So that's how he's able to there's an autopilot system that has like reconfigured itself from a rabbit to a human, so that because it can do that automatically, which is really planning ahead. They don't plan ahead at all about having multiple chips in case they lose one or one gets damaged, that they could re-enlarge them if they needed to. They don't plan ahead that way, but they do plan ahead by having, if you're injected into a rabbit, but then somehow go from a rabbit into a human. Then you can then your autopilot can update, which is nice.
Big thing in the 80s and early 90s, like just there's only one chip ever in any sort of technology. It's never backed up.
No. He goes to the ear. He's like, I'm gonna go see my doctor. It's like, yeah, why don't you do that, Jack? So he's gonna go to his doctor, and so he goes to the inner ear, and he creates a little thing so he can talk to the person. Again, I don't know why he would need to talk to a rabbit, but then again, they have made it so if you are in a human, you can do this anyway. So he starts talking to Martin Short, and Martin Short is like trying to find out who's the person who's talking to him. There's this amazing scene in the waiting room with on Martin Short's right, it's Joe Flaherty, and on his left, it's Andrea Martin from SCTV, two of his best friends and former co-stars. And it was a great scene. And so the sisters keeps talking to me like, no, I'm not out there. I'm in here. I'm inside you, inside your body. And it's one of the funniest things in any movie to me is Martin Short standing up, my God, somebody help me. I'm possessed.
It's so good.
So
I think this is my favorite scene in the movie. And I love watching Martin Short start to calculate everything, especially because we've established she's a hypochondriac.
Yeah.
So having these interactions in the waiting room of him asking another guy, like, were you talking to me? And he's like, no. and then turning to the lady and saying, did you hear that? And she's like, hear what? Like seeing him do the math on his face before we get to that line makes that line so much better.
It's so good.
And he's just, the whole movie, I just want to hug this guy. He's so sweet. But his facial expressions of this are just so brilliant. It's just like you see his eyes getting wider and like, what is happening to me?
So Dennis Quaid is piloting this thing throughout the entire body. This is the one thing I have. In order to get from place to place, he ends up like using a little laser to sever the walls of veins and organs. And he doesn't turn
Martin Short's body.
He doesn't turn around and then reseal them with a different laser that can like seal things back up. So is Martin Short just slowly bleeding to death internally for the duration of this movie? Because there's so many times where he just severs a vein so he can like get in and out of it. But I believe small incisions like that, the body will close up on their own. But I would have liked for them to explain that to me at some point, because I felt really bad about there's all of these. There's also places where he like gets from one place of the body to another place really fast. And I wonder how many arteries he would have had to sever. You know what I mean?
There is like it is unequal in that we get the physical ramifications of him being behind the eye, and then the navigation stuff we don't get that. It is very impressive though how this stuff was shot, especially for the late 80s. Like these navigation through the body scenes are really, really great. And Dennis Quaid's so much fun in this. He's like, he walks this very good line of being like a guy on a mission inside the body, and navigating that he was supposed to be in a rabbit, and just being the rest of the character that he was in the beginning of this movie to get to this point. Like it all comes together really nicely in all this. Yeah.
Now, Michael Dammit says cauterization. That'd be fine if they actually ever show him cauterizing anything, because they never do. But so he's talking to his doctor about thinks he's possessed or whatever, and he can hear the voice talking about God because he shines a light into his ear and blinds Dennis Quaid, and he says, "Oh God!" So he's not talking about God. I think you might be having some kind of theistic hallucination, really theistic hysteria. Well, what do you do for that? And I love this line. The doctor's so great at it. He says, "Well, the medieval school of thought, the medieval remedy was to flay the skin off your body with brands of fire." I have no idea what the current thinking is, which is just a wonderful doctor thing to say. But he goes home. He goes home, and he's going to go to his little tiny studio apartment. And this is where he starts talking to Dennis Quaid again, who's recovered from being blinded. And Dennis Quaid needs him to listen to him, so he uses the electromagnetic booster to blow up his TV and his VCR. Then like, you understand that I am inside you, yes. And so there's this really interesting little thing. It's like, you don't work at the lab, do you? No, I work at Safeway. You don't know anything about miniaturization or anything? No. It's like, all I know was I was supposed to be injected into the body of a laboratory rabbit, and somehow I was inside a syringe, and now I'm inside you. And then there's a scene they never show us, which is Martin Short explaining to Dennis Quaid, yes, some guy stumbled out of an elevator in the mall and jabbed me with a syringe. That must be how you got inside me. Oh yeah, that guy, he's dead now. And Dennis Quaid having to react to how his friend Ozzy is dead. And also that's the guy who would know the most about how to get him out of this situation, and that's gone now. That is the one scene I think the movie could have benefited from, is that particular exchange of dialogue. So they know that he's Jay Potter because they have a picture of him being injected with the thing. And so find him, Mr. Igo. And so Igo has a henchman who doubles as a delivery guy who shows up and decides, he's like, hey, there's some cruise tickets for you. can I use your phone? And he just walks into his apartment. And Dennis Quaid's like, this guy's not a real delivery driver. And sure enough, the guy pulls a gun on Martin Short. And so Martin Short, like, grab it. Martin Short, listening to Tuck Pendleton, is now a He-Man, which is great. He grabs the gun, kicks him in the balls, hits him on the back of the head with the gun butt, runs away.
I've never rooted for anyone so hard in my life. Like, I was so behind
so
this. It's so sweet. And I just love, you wouldn't believe somebody that was telling you this anyway, but I love that they went out of their way to establish that he's a hypochondriac. Like, because it's, it's Boy Cried Wolf from the beginning.
Right.
Like, nobody would rightfully entertain that this is something that could happen, but it's just, it makes all the immediate dismissals so kind of great in this. But
so because his heart's pumping so fast, and unfortunately, Dennis Quaid had just been like somewhere near the spleen, it would have been fine, but no, he was in an artery, so he's being pumped very hard back to the heart, to the vent. There's a really cool thing of like him, like, do not enter heart, says the submersible to him. And so he's able to find a way to get out by, again, cutting a tiny little hole in the side of the artery and piloting the thing through it. And I feel like that's really close to the ventricle of the heart. I feel like you shouldn't have bleeding there. But anyway,
it's so like, cool how they establish the relationship with the body, though. Like it's really, really cool of just like what happens physically.
Yeah. He goes. They take him to this back to the lab. And there's you meet another scientist who was caught in traffic and didn't make it to the miniaturization. So but he's another guy. He's Dr. Niles, and so they're talking. Martin Short explains what's going on, and so they're trying to figure this out. And so then they're like, "Could you excuse us a moment?" So Dr. Niles and Pete, the nemesis of Dennis Quaid, could go and talk. And then they stand. So he's like, you stand over there. I'll try and like boost the signal. Just look straight at him. And so they can both hear from them far away. And they realize, well, listen, only until 9 a.m. tomorrow when he's going to run out of oxygen. We got to figure out a way to get him back. The other chip's been stolen. Yeah, but we don't need that chip, says Pete. All we got to do, make your duplicates. We'll figure out how to get him out of there. He'll be dead by then. But what does it matter? He knew the risks. And so Dennis Quaid's like, thanks, Pete. And so he runs to Pete's lock to Tuck's locker, gets his jacket, his flight jacket, and gets in his Mustang and drives away. And he's like, please, just whatever you do, don't accidentally cause an embolism in there and go, oh, sorry. Like, no, we'll be fine. We'll be okay in there, kid. So then they drive from there. They've gotten away from the scientists. And they're gone to Tuck's house because Tuck needs a drink. That seems to be the only reason they go to that house.
Yes,
that's honestly the only reason they could have gotten a drink anywhere else. And also, this is my quibble about getting a drink. He brought in with him a suitcase, a metal suitcase that has a bunch of cassette tapes and a Walkman, which he uses throughout the thing, and an empty flask. You could have brought in some whiskey or something in the flask, right? Or does liquid not shrink the way other things shrink? They could have explained that to us. But the thing that he says is like, you have to have a drink or I can't have a drink because I'm going to like use something to like put my flask out there into your esophagus through a hole that I've cut in your esophagus, which feels also bad. And then the liquor goes down into the flask. And I'm like, were you going to have the bunny take a pull off a bottle of Southern Comfort? Like, that's the one thing for me is
that's so funny. I didn't think about that.
You can't have a drink unless I have a drink, but you're an alcoholic, so you definitely need a drink. But you brought an empty flask with you. It would be a really cool if like he'd open it up and go, oh crap, I forgot to fill the flask. All right, Jack, I'm gonna need some help from you. Like, it seems like this is plan A, that we need to get the bunny drunk so I can get a buzz. Like, this feels like a thing that should have been dealt with somewhere along the line. But Martin Short has zero tolerance. So that's
why they did the scene for real. Yeah. It's like
they said also Martin Short choreographed the dance himself. He did so many takes of this. and did all of this as his own thing. They're
what a gem! I love hearing all that.
Twisting the Night Away by Sam Cooke. They make Dennis Quaid into a huge Sam Cooke fan. It just feels arbitrary. I don't know why, but it's a perfectly, that guy's got some great songs, so that's why he's a Sam Cooke fan. But anyway, he's dancing around to it, and he just collapses. The other thing is that if you ever see inside the pod the video that Dennis Quaid sees, when they film him, that's there. They didn't overlay that later. That's there. So every scene they had to do an extra take with Martin Short wearing a helmet cam so that you would see what's going throughout his thing, so that when Dennis Quaid looks and sees stuff, you can actually see that.
So he had to mirror it almost. He had to mirror exactly,
all the time.
Basically.
Yeah, it's great.
Jeez. That's so
anyway,
cool.
So this is we're gonna need a lot more help. I need you to go and find my Lydia, who is an investigative reporter and knows that there's been a murder and that there's been a break-in at Vector Scope, and we don't know what they're working with, but the cowboy's in town, and her editor is just always confused. Who the hell is the goddamn cowboy? And so the cowboy we meet, that's Bob Picardo, again, another one of Joe Dante's players. And I believe he's supposed to be Israeli. I think that's what he's supposed to be. The accent is wonderful because you cannot place it. It's just generally foreign. But I'm not. He's definitely from that area. And the ridiculous wig. That's a kind of a very short afro thing that he wears, but everything is he always talks about, is all, there's nothing like a good cigar. Hey, amigo. And he's not at all Mexican. Is very, very funny. But he's a fence who buys and sells stolen property. So that's his thing, but he's a very funny character. So Martin Short meets Lydia, has to try and convince her of things so they can get him, blah, 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 but never actually tells her anything because I guess Tuck doesn't want to worry her. So they go to lunch, and Jack is very bad at trying to be a tough person who's telling her what to do. So he has to take a break to go pee. And while he's talking to Tuck while peeing into a urinal, and this other guy walks by him and goes, "Play with it, pal, but don't talk to it." And it was a very funny line. But on his way back, he is kidnapped, taken prisoner by Mr. Igo, and then Meg Ryan stands up. She's got this is a taser gun, and I will shoot you. And I don't know why she thought she was going to shoot through Martin Short, who's being held directly in front of Igo. So she shoots and hits Martin Short, and just that's great. And this is another one of my favorite things. So he's knocked out by the taser. Igo takes him. They leave. And they're
assisted by accident. Yeah.
Right. Yes. There's the continuity person came to Joe Dante apparently months after this was released, and it's like, "I'm so sorry, I made such a horrible mistake." And Joe's like, "What? I didn't notice anything." When he picks up Martin Short, he puts him over his left shoulder. When he walks out of the back of the restaurant, he's over his right shoulder. And like, this woman was so apologetic to me, says Joe Dante, that she had somehow like accidentally killed a pet of mine or something. And I was like, "No, it's fine. It's totally fine. Don't worry about it." But it is like the one major gaffe in the whole thing. Yeah. So
I've decided he fireman carried him and then flipped it or something. Yeah.
There you go. He is in the habit of illegally parking his vehicle whenever he goes to kidnap somebody or kill them. And this time bit him in the ass. He parked somewhere he's not supposed to be. He came out and it was being towed. So he's got to, like, this is one of those things of, we got to have the scene with the big refrigerator truck. But why would he be driving a refrigerator truck instead of just his car? Because his car was towed. So the kind of things that like Jeffrey Bohm makes sure are there.
It's so good, and that also never happens. I loved that of like there being a consequence for that. That's really, really fun. That never happens in movies.
So they so Lydia follows them, and they take Jack, who is freezing in the back of this thing. So they take him to this meet right by the Golden Gate Bridge, where they meet Victor Scrimshaw, played by Kevin McCarthy, who we've talked about from UHF when we watched that. And he's this crazy millionaire who's he like so we're gonna go to the lab or whatever. We're gonna take him there. Do you want to ride in the limo, Mr. Scrimshaw? No, I'm going to stay back here with my friend Jack. It's great, crazy performance by Kevin McCarthy. And he says, nuclear weapons. Everybody's got them. Nobody's got the balls to use them. Space, you say? Space is a flop. Didn't you know that? Just a giant junkyard of debris floating in the ether. But miniaturization, Jack, that's the key. So that's what he's going to basically sell this thing to the highest bidder. I was
wondering if there was like something cutesy happening there. Of it felt like we had been through movie fads of that, of like was dismissing space, kind of like the genres been done to death or whatever. It was kind of like I was thinking about that, if it was like cutesier than maybe it looked on the surface.
So Tuck can see through Jack's eyes that the back door is not locked, and it's just flopping there. So you're going to jump up, you're going to run out, you're going to push open the doors, you're going to jump out of the back of the truck. And then Jack does it, because whatever Tuck tells him to do, he does. But it's still moving at quite a rate of speed, and Jack almost falls out of the door. Another thing I love is they show several times Mr. Igo driving the truck has very hair music, hair rock blasting in his Walkman, so he can't hear that he needs to stop the truck when Kevin McCarthy's like, Igo, stop the truck. Again, you've taken that part out of it, so I don't have to go, now why wouldn't he hear? No, because he's wearing the Walkman. So there's an amazing stunt sequence here where Meg Ryan is trying to get Jack to jump into the vehicle, and because he is who he is, he can't just jump. But it's really great. It's a lot of fun. There's like a motorcycle that goes between his legs as he's standing with one foot on the windshield of the convertible and one leg on here. It's great. So much fun. But they eventually get him to drop in there. Martin Short did a couple of the stunts himself. They ran like bars up the pant leg. So like they were so stiff, and like they were attached to his legs, so he couldn't have fallen over even if he wanted to. So, but they were actually, it's interesting to have like Martin Short doing some of his own stunts. Anyway,
that's so he takes so much pride in it. That's so cool. Yeah. Like I love.
So they get away, and now they're going to go and try and find the cowboy who always stays at the same hotel. And they found him. He always goes to the same nightclub. He never sleeps. So they go there. So they try and like spy on him. And Wendy's there. And who immediately thinks that Jack now is the coolest, because he's wearing a fashionable sport coat. And what happened to you? Literally, he put on a fashionable sport coat,
a jacket.
Yeah, that's it. This is very fun because it's Meg Ryan pretending to have the hots for the cowboy and not, while Wendy Shao says, my life just sucks. I mean, I'm a total mess. I mean, you're the only guy at the supermarket I haven't slept with, and you're the only one I'm remotely attracted to. And but anyway, she's great.
She's so good. She's so good.
So the cowboy takes Meg Ryan back to the hotel, and Jack is going to follow in the car. But so he and Tuck are arguing about how much Jack has the hots for Meg Ryan, because why wouldn't you? How could you not? That's the other thing about it, is that it's a perfect casting, because like, especially if you're Jack, Like this is the closest you've been
Oh
to a
yeah,
woman.
like
But she's also just like, you know, it's
so
everything.
beautiful.
Yeah, it's actually, and they also really wonderfully explain why she is so beautiful. Is that the little overbite that gives her mouth this pouty expression? And I've never actually had that explained in that way, but the way that like Jack would totally say it like that is like she's got this beautiful mouth or really nice smile, whatever. No, he distills it down to the overbite that causes it because
that's this guy.
that's this
Yeah.
guy. So he is being having his adrenal glands stimulated by Tuck so that he's like really raring to go, and he runs up. It's like wrong door, Jack, and then he turns to the left. That's an exit. Come on, control it. Come on in there. So he kicks in the door and he knocks out the cowboy with one punch. And I feel like what they're supposed to do is the cowboy is meeting with Scrimshaw early tomorrow morning, like 7 a.m. So just follow him there. And then when he leaves, then try and get what he's got because he'll have the chip with him then. If he's supposed to. So instead of that, he knocks out the cowboy. And then this is where he goes, all right, can you look at him? Just really look at him. All right, I'm going to map his face. And then now go look in the mirror. What are you doing? I'm going to simulate the nerves in your face to make you look like a different person. And I'm like, no. The whole thing is the movie has earned this because all of the other things in the movie have gotten progressively more and more out there. But it is very funny to me that
a bridge too far. Yeah.
Yep. But it's a really cool little thing where they have Robert Picardo wearing a wig to look like Jack's hair, and Meg Ryan is totally freaked out by this. But no, it's me, it's Jack. Yeah, she should be. Yeah. And then they do this thing with like they're trying to pull the face and like move it around. It's like, and that was not prosthetics. That's just Bob Picardo's rubbery face, which is very fun. And so they decide they're going to go and infiltrate the this place, Kevin McCarthy's home, and they do. But they don't at all question why the cowboy has brought his sister-in-law, Meg Ryan. It is a very fun scene because it is now Robert Picardo playing Martin Short, playing the cowboy. And it's a really fun scene. Like that guy is really great, Bob Picardo. But he's trying to like do a really bad accent that because Martin Short would try and do the accent and it's really bad. It's a really great little scene. But wouldn't you know it? Because he's just his fake gold tooth falls out, which tips them off that it's definitely not him. So, did anybody ever show you, my dear, the cowboy's amazing pain tolerance? And so they're going to like use a blowtorch to cut off his hand. And because of that, Jack has gotten so crazy, he's having a panic attack, which then causes his face to go back from Bob Picardo to Martin Short. And the special effects they do with different prosthetic heads that they then intercut super fast to make it, because his head's like just doing like this, and his head is just a giant like big bullfrog neck at one point, and then his head goes pointy. It's a really cool little scene. So they've now been taken prisoner. And they know that they go to their lab, and so this is a weird thing. They kiss. Meg Ryan and Jack kiss because she now accepts that Tuck is in there. So I guess she thinks she's kissing Tuck, but they pass through the saliva in the kiss. That is a forceful kiss.
It's aggressive, yeah.
And also he would have to be sitting in the salivary glands, if not closer to the actual mouth, to be able to move through in this way. But we just go, you know what? It's this movie. I suppose that's okay. Until he goes back again, like he has to have like just been just setting up shop, just camping in the salivary glands at 2 points in this movie, which we never see him talk about. But anyway, he gets transferred into Lydia, and he's in there, and he finds a fetus. I don't know how he got from the back of the mouth to the uterus.
All the way
Just
through the reproductive
deciding,
system, and
just feels like that doesn't connect. Like you'd have to go down the esophagus again, cut a way out of the esophagus, then through the rest of like the cavity of around here, and then just cut another hole in the. There's not a lot of ways you could get into the uterus from the mouth. Is my thing. Like you got to like really specifically go there and do that. But okay. So now he realizes that that Lydia is pregnant with his kid. And now this is probably the moment where he changes. He's never going to have another drink again, because that's what they do in movies.
That's how addiction works.
Yes.
In the 80s.
Yes. So I have a question, because the way she says things are different now when she leaves him. Did she know she was pregnant then? How far along is she now? It's 2 months from the
2 months later.
They last consummated their relationship. I wonder, did she get pregnant then, or was she pregnant before? How far along is she? Because certainly Meg Ryan is not. There's no baby bump with Meg Ryan.
No.
So I don't know if she's 2 months along. Is she 3 months along? I don't know. Who knows? Anyway, so now he's going to change everything because he sees the baby. So they realize that they're back and forth. So they switch him back. And now he's back. But they miniaturize Mr. Igo in his own little like submersible suit. It's got like drills and claws and stuff on it. He's going to find the pod, eliminate the driver, take control of the pod, and then pilot out the pod through a tear duct or something. And then Scrimshaw says, no, once he's in the pod, let's just re-enlarge. While it's still inside Mr. Putter, yeah. Do you have any idea of the mess that would make? And Dr. Kanker, who's got the hots for Igo, by the way. We see her and Igo having a little tryst with some wine. He takes a corkscrew off of his little. He's got a lot of attachments for his hand. He takes the corkscrew off and puts on a marital aid of some kind. It is very briefly seen, but that is definitely what he puts on the end of his wrist. Anyway, so this is a really fun little scene because it's really well shot. It's a cool little action chase thing. They have shrank all the bad guys to 50% their size. So everyone's like between 2.5 and 3 feet tall. And Margaret, Dr. Kanker, and Mr. Scrimshaw are now very, 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 very small. And they are able to get out when the cops show up. They get out and they hide in the back of this car that Martin Short and Lydia are driving. And I watched it back a few times. Joe Dante describing how they shot this. This was all shot practically. They just had force perspective of how far back from the camera the back seat actually is. They made the back seat bigger, right? There's obviously like the stuff that's going that you can see out the back windshield. That's all superimposed. But in the car, everything is practical. So that's actually Fiona Lewis, who plays Dr. Kanker, and Kevin McCarthy in the back seat. They're actual regular size, but they're so far back from the camera, and everything they're interacting with is so large that they're able to attack Martin Short and Meg Ryan from behind while it looks like they've just been superimposed there. Everything is entirely practical.
It's like the opposite of the Spinal Tap Stonehenge.
Right. Right. But everything.
That's incredible.
Everything is done in a totally practical way, which is amazing, and that's why they won the Oscar. So while they're having this chase scene, while they're driving at a crazy rate of speed through San Francisco, being attacked from behind by two very, very small miniaturized people, Um, at that same time, inside Jack, it's Mr. Igo trying to kill Dennis Quaid. And Dennis Quaid really can't do much of anything, but he's like, "Here, I'm going to shoot this laser at you. I'm going to because his turbo thrusters have been disabled. Igo's like claws rip out all the little hydraulic stuff, so now he can't move. He can't actually go anywhere. He's just stuck. So
very clever, all this.
Yeah. Igo, he's just like I don't know, a cattle prod or something gets shoved into like the thruster of Igo's suit. It's like it's not a pod like what Dennis Quaid is in. It's vertical and he's inside it. It's like a mech suit. It's like a mech suit. But his thruster gets disabled because it gets shot with like some kind of cattle prod gets stuck up inside it. And so he falls away, like eject. So now he's like in like this very advanced scuba suit with a jetpack on the back. This is the thing is that Joe Dante wanted the bad guys to be incredibly well funded because they have no problem stealing money to make everything really well done.
That makes sense.
The actual scientists they're basically trying to run this thing out of an office park, and it's just not working out for them. So Igo is trying to use a drill to drill into the air tanks to finally kill him. So so Dennis Quaid gets into the opening of the stomach and tells Jack that he saw a tumor somewhere in there. So his ulcer starts going crazy, and then he just releases and drops into the stomach acids, and then Mr. Igo goes and turns into a skeleton. He says, "Jack, you just digested the bad guy." So Pete helps them get to the lab. They're trying to figure out a way. I need you to get me out of here. You got to sneeze, Jack. I'm in your lungs, and maybe you can blow me out of there because I don't have more fluid that could boost me anywhere. So we established earlier that he's allergic to hairspray. So he's like, "Please, somebody give me some hairspray." And somebody gives him something. And he's like, "Not mousse, hairspray," which is a wonderful 80s thing. And so he sprays some hairspray on his face. He sneezes right into the glasses of Dr. Niles. And this other guy sees him there with the little microscopic glasses, and he uses tweezers to pull him off of the thing. and then they re-enlarge him, and hey, he's fine.
Yay! No damage.
No damage at all. He has a moment with Lydia, not Linda, not me. No, it's not me at all. Lydia says, "Why didn't you tell me?" And she doesn't say anything because the reason I didn't tell you is because you're an alcoholic, and I really wasn't sure if you always wanted you to raise my child. But anyway, the next thing is the wedding, which had to have happened very fast because again, Lydia's still not showing. This is happening very quickly. The limo driver is the cowboy. You can tell because he's wearing cowboy boots. And Kevin McCarthy and Dr. Kanker are inside a suitcase in the back. And so because Dennis Quaid is wearing the chips as cufflinks, and I feel like he shouldn't have been allowed to do that.
No, seems bad.
It seems like not a good thing. So Jack, who is the best man, sends them off on their honeymoon, but then realizes, oh my God, that was the cowboy. Because everyone's like, hey, Jack, if you're not going on vacation, I could definitely use you at the store, says his boss. Hey, Jack, I was thinking we could try dating, says Wendy. Not exclusively at first, at least for me. And then the doctor says, I'd like for you to come back around to the office. Maybe we'll run some tests on you. And he says, Doc, I'm cured. Wendy, not a chance. And Mr. Wormwood, thanks. And I quit. And then he jumps in the back of the Mustang, says, Jack Putter to the rescue, and he drives off. And this is a very, very fun little ending. Jack has gotten over all of his stuff, and he is going to rescue his friends from the cowboy, and it'll be fun. and they should have made a sequel.
They should. This is a rare one.
This is a rare one.
This is a rare one where it begged for a sequel, and there should have been one. I don't know if I've ever rooted for anybody other than Eddie Kingston. I don't know if I've ever rooted for anybody as hard as Jack in my life. Like he's so easy to get behind in this. It's so much fun. What just a gem of a performance, and you just you want it all for him. You want it all for him, and just the incredible balance of his vulnerability with the physicality of the relationship with somebody inside him is just like, just magic. Like a lot of the stuff we do that we end up like keeping in, relies a lot on the performances of some of these guys, and this is definitely one of them because it's such a wacky little idea.
Yeah. And this is it works entirely based on the relationship between all these characters. You are just root for Martin Short so much, but like it's this weird little like it's basically that Tuck becomes his Jiminy Cricket, like trying to like teach him to go and like get better, make the right decisions and all this stuff, which is kind of funny because then Tuck has made all wrong decisions in his entire life, and him
like that I can tell you how to do something. Yeah. And I like that you see Martin Short's confidence grow of like he had the one fight scene and then he had the next scene. Like it's a reasonable, not a lot of reasonable things in such a weird movie, but like it's an even trajectory a little bit with that. It's very fun to get to the ending of. This is as sci-fi action comedies go, this has got to be one of the best. Yes. This is much like Meg Ryan with her baby. I'm keeping it. Okay. Keeping the flick in.
Putter, don't preach. I'm in trouble deep. Feeling Dreepy says this podcast could probably survive on just Joe Dante movies for months because his good movies are great and his bad movies are just disappointing. He doesn't have. They're all great.
What stinkers does he have?
I mean, Small Soldiers wasn't fun, but that was a kids movie. There's not a lot of great stuff in his latter years, but like the early stuff is all really excellent.
It's all very high risk stuff, so you're bound to get some stinkers in that, right? Like it's extremely ambitious. So makes sense.
I had not heard of Amazon Women on the Moon, but that might be. It's an anthology, so it's like he's got one of the different stories is directed by him. Very interesting.
Okay.
I don't know. Interesting. Joe Dante, 3 for 3.
Undefeated.
Joe, good for you.
Three successful defenses here.
Three success, undefeated, undisputed. Thank you so much. I wanted to do this real quick. I've been doing figures and stuff, but these are actually Joe Dante related. I got a little gizmo. See, it's a little gizmo, and he comes with a Santa hat. It's a little gizmo. See, that's really cool.
Every movie we do, or some movies that we do, makes me lose more and more respect for Furbies. Between this and the Yeti, between Gremlins 2, and I was like, you lazy Furby designer.
And then this is the brain gremlin from the
cool looking.
Yeah, it's really cool. I got those, and I was like, yep, those are going on the shelf some point. Anyway, thanks everybody. Hey, board dude, congratulations.
Hell yeah.
Good for you, board dude. 630. 3 weeks long, my sobriety. That's awesome.
More than we can say for Tuck.
Yeah, more than we can say for Tuck, who is definitely not. But anyway,
congratulations.
So we're gonna get a little early start next week on Schlocktober. I'm making Kate watch the movies this year because she's proved she can handle it. She watched Cocaine Bear, so she's proved she can handle it.
I'm a big girl.
I found movies that I know she can handle. We are going to watch them together this year. No spooky buddies for Kate. You're
gonna watch them like this.
She's just gonna watch them just like that. So we're gonna start early next week We started with we did InnerSpace this week. Next week we're going to have something coming from outer space.
Dun dun dun.
Until then, we'll see you guys next time. Bye bye. Have a good weekend.